syntax, how you actually declare an array is a bit different. And we start to see this square bracket notation being used. So if I want to store or create an array of some numbers, then I have to create something like, let's say, what's a good example? 3 is a good example. I don't want to do too many. Okay, so we break this down a little bit. We have our type. So what we're saying here is array of ints. Okay, so we see int, which is familiar, it's primitive. But then the square brackets indicates this is going to have multiple integers being stored. Okay, we're already familiar with the name. We're already familiar with the new to mean we're constructing something. But then the term we use to actually initialize this array just repeats the type. Again, this is an array of ints, but this time we include the size, okay? Because we need to know in advance how big this array is going to be. If I just draw quickly how that is looking, this is more or less the same idea we've already been developing. We have a name called numbers, except this time this is just going to point to an area of memory. And again, it only has 3 elements. So the index is going to be 1, 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so to actually do something with this, we can start storing things, but we can only store ints. Okay, so then if I want to actually put something in the first position, numbers, and I reuse the square brackets, passing in the index, again, 0 is going to be the first element, and then the value I want that to be, let's say, is value 4. Okay. And what's really common with when people are drawing arrays is because they're considered quite simple and we're usually working with primitive types like numbers, or at least in my examples, we might just go and draw the number directly in the array. Okay. What's important is we must respect the index because we can't access something that doesn't exist. So if I say, try to put the number 6 into element 3, well, there's actually nothing here. Okay, so we'll get some type of invalid index warning here. Okay, a really good question then is, what is, if I have this fixed size array, what is actually going on in the ones that I haven't actually put anything into? What's a good suggestion for if I asked for, let's say, int number becomes, and I want to just access an array position. So to access something, I just say, well, give me the second element. Okay. Does anyone know what the value of num is going to be? Johan thinks it might be null. Any other ideas? Jorgis thinks it's going to be 0. Okay. Again, great way to find these things out is to go to your friendly JShell, which has disappeared a long time ago. Why don't I just type out JShell? Because I really typed that more times than I can remember. So int square bracket numbers becomes new int square brackets and say 3. Okay, and what's really nice about JShell is it will reveal to you what the defaults are. Okay, so it tells us, well, the default value for an int is 0. And again, you can find that out yourself. If I create a name, a symbol A, and say it is of type int, JShell will tell you, well, the default, you haven't given me any value, you've not initialized this, so the default value is going to be 0. Okay, let's just do that. Let's say we wanted an array of booleans. Okay, so these are the truths. It's a horrible name, but we'll go with it. Okay, and let's just make this 3 as well. Okay, anyone hazard a guess what the default for Boolean is? 1 vote for false, some votes for true. Again, always good to get a sense of these by trying it out, first of all. Hopefully not on production code, hopefully on something you're just working with. Okay, where was I? I was over here. Okay, so yeah, we get the answer there that actually the value there will be 0. Now, we saw an array list, a slightly different formulation. We weren't using primitive types, we were actually using object. And the syntax is true for no matter what. If I want to have a collection of objects, same idea. Just make sure you get the right case of the type object. Don't know why I'm always saying 3, but there we go. If you want to have an array of strings, same idea. An array of strings, square bracket, these are going to be my words, becomes new string, let's say 4 this time. Okay. And again, depending on what you go for, we go back to JShell, let's just change this to be a Boolean array or an object array. This is just going to contain objects. You can see the default is null for objects, but if this were string, what is the sensible default for a string? At least in Java, null. Any other defaults? Yep, quotation marks. No, it's null. Oh, okay, I forgot that one myself. Okay, so actually the default for string is actually null as well. Sorry, George, you got it right the first time, and then I encouraged you to doubt yourself. Would an object type array be able to store instances of a class we make? Yes, okay, because object is the root type for everything. So every time you look in documentation, like for array list, you will get this little inheritance tree telling you that an array list inherits from an abstract list, which inherits from an abstract collection, which ultimately inherits from an object. Okay, so quick answer to that one. Yeah, so the main things to realize that we have this fixed size. Okay, this is what makes arrays both interesting and somewhat challenging to work with, is that you need to really know how much space you need in advance. Otherwise, you need a complicated operation to grow the array into a bigger available space. Okay.